Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, there have been very interesting diplomatic developments that have barely reached the mainstream US media. In recent days, the head of Saudi intelligence has visited Damascus and has held extensive talks with the government of Bashar al-Assad. Now, this is, of course, very significant because, of course, Saudi Arabia famously engineered the dismissal of Syria from the Arab League in 2011, and in 2012, Saudi Arabia closed its embassy in Damascus, and even more notoriously, Saudi Arabia waged a clandestine war against the government of Bashar al-Assad. It was funded, trained, armed jihadis who, at a certain point, seemed poised to win. So the ISIS caliphate, which at one time was fairly extensive in Syria, all courtesy of Saudi Arabia. So this move by the Saudis is a significant event. Moreover, there are also signs of rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. There have been meetings, and they're clearly working together to some kind of a settlement of the conflict in Yemen. So what we're really beginning to see here is the increasing isolation from the Middle East of the United States and the European Union. Let's remember, the United States is still committed essentially to a regime change in Damascus. It still essentially sets its conditions for removing its horrific sanctions. Its conditions is the departure of Bashar al-Assad, and it will not relent on the sanctions, and the same goes with the European Union. So now it's clear that the Saudis are willing to restore diplomatic relations, allow Syria back into the Arab League. More significantly, they're likely to provide reconstruction aid to Syria. That's very significant. But what it's also showing is that the absolute massive, horrific failure of Barack Obama. We've talked extensively, Peter, about Obama's failures in Ukraine, but what he did in the Middle East is perhaps even more calamitous. I mean, for him to believe that he could try to topple the government in Damascus, given that he should have known that Damascus had powerful friends, Russia and Iran, who would not allow Assad to fall in the way that Gaddafi was allowed to fall. For him to do this, to launch this, it was a catastrophic. It's been 10 years, this war. And now it's ending in this abject failure. I kind of feel that America's not going to make any progress until it makes some kind of a reckoning with the legacy of Barack Obama. All right, Peter, take it away.
Don't hold your breath.
Right.
Okay? Because the same foreign policy minions that worked for him are working in the Biden administration right now.
Yes.
But this is a very significant story. We'll see if it gets much traction in the mainstream media, because a number of things are in play here. If there's a rapprochement with including Riyadh and Damascus, that means Damascus ends up being somewhat of a power broker, somewhat of an intermediary, because if they can reestablish diplomatic relations with the Saudis, they have an open door with Iran. And so this is when the parlay can start. Now, also, Saudi Arabia has realized its war against Yemen, its genocidal war against Yemen, is an utter complete failure. So what we see is Riyadh taking a different look. And I mean, they can look at, there's a new administration right now. They don't know what Biden's up to. We don't know what Biden's up to. I don't think Biden knows what he's up to.
Right.
But, the entire region sees like the JCPOA. I mean, you in, you out, when you want, you have sanctions. We didn't, how about dropping sanctions before that? What's coming out of Washington is just gobbledygook, okay? And if we do see, and which I hope to see, you and I are no big fans of Saudi Arabia, obviously, but if it can bring regional stability, that's another thing.
Right.
And so if we see a rapprochement, the Saudis and the Syrians talking to each other, they're going to say, well, why do you need American troops in my country illegally?
Right.
All right. Okay. And so it starts things also. And also, Saudi Arabia's great nemesis in the region is Hezbollah. And who has good relations with Hezbollah? Right. Syria does. Right. Okay, you see how the pieces start coming together and start moving? Right. And George, all without the United States interfering, meddling in the region. I have said for years, the U.S. has to get out and let the region take care of its own problems, okay? They hate each other. There's no shortage of hatred in the Middle East, but you have to make them figure it out. Because what U.S. and British and French intervention is always a crutch not to do something.
Right.
And this is what we have. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right. And so what we're now having is the Biden administration has managed in the space of 4 months to antagonize just about everybody in the Middle East. I mean, whatever else you can say about Trump at least had a straightforward policy. Israel down the line, Saudi Arabia down the line, hatred for Iran, hatred for Iranian proxies such as Hezbollah or Iran's proxies in Iraq. That was the Trump policy. Biden has reversed all of that, but without actually going into any indefinite direction. So what Biden has done, he's antagonized the Saudis. He's antagonized it by making all of these overtures to Iran. So again, is the United States back in the JCPOA, not back in the JCPOA? Either way, the Saudis don't like it, particularly as they went out on a limb, along with the UAE and others, with the Abraham Accords, and now suddenly that's being tossed aside. Biden has also managed to have bad relations with Netanyahu. That's also in the bank, and he's now also committed to this ridiculous policy of regime change in Syria, which clearly is going nowhere. So who else is on board? Well, Turkey's still, I guess, on board. I mean, he still holds on to this enclave in Idlib. But Biden has antagonized Turkey, so Turkey can't be relied upon as an ally in Syria. So it is an absolute fiasco. And as you say, it's the players in locally are now trying to shuffle around the pieces and go back to what the situation was before that idiot Barack Obama absolutely unnecessarily intervened with his Libya and Syria interventions.
Well, see, but what's important to keep in mind here is that because we really don't know what direction the Biden administration wants to take, the Saudis are calculating, well, we should get ahead of the shark here. I mean, why should be on the receiving end if we can be forward-looking and actually talk to the players themselves? And that's in their national interest to do that, instead of waiting for Tony Blinken to call up and say, this are your marching orders, and good job on that democracy project in Saudi Arabia. Okay. So this is what we see now going on is a lot of realism in the Middle East, which it desperately needs. All right. Because if we can see, and we're not getting our hopes real high here, but there's an opening here, and I hope that the players take advantage of it, because then the U.S. occupation of the Middle East is untenable. Right. I mean, they're not wanted in Iraq. They say they're going to leave Afghanistan. That remains to be seen. And my money's still on it that they're not going to go, but we'll see. Right. Okay. And this illegal occupation in Syria is just beyond the pale. And so, and also what it is, we know the Saudis and the Israelis talk very regularly. It's probably a very cozy relationship. See what I mean? You know, you get all of these players together. Where's the US?
Right.
Where's Britain? Where's France? They're not needed.
Right, right. But in the meantime, of course, today, there's going to be a UN Security Council meeting to discuss the situation in East Jerusalem. That's, of course, a great embarrassment for the United States because, of course, once again, it'll be in a position of being the great defender of Israel. But it's also a great embarrassment to the Gulf states that signed the Abraham Accords.
Right.
So, you know, they went out on a limb to show their friendship to Israel, and now this is a huge embarrassment. You know, because the Arab world is saying, yeah, well, what did you think was going to happen? You know, that's what it is. So this is going to be yet another source of embarrassment for the U.S. And so here you got the situation there that, you know, you've got the Americans who needlessly antagonized Saudi Arabia over the Khashoggi thing. And then we had the whole thing with the JCPOA. Now it's going ahead with this policy against Syria, but without even the fig leaf that it had before, which is, well, we're in alongside the Arab League. Well, now you're not alongside the Arab League anymore. So they seem to be happy to be welcome Syria back into the fold. So why exactly are you pursuing these savage sanctions? What's Bashar al-Assad to you? I mean, what threat does he pose to the EU and the United States? I mean, it's an absolutely crazy policy.
Well, and also, like you said, I mean, if part of the rapprochement with the Saudis and the Syrians is some form of reconstruction, do you think there's a lobby that's in the U.S. is going to want to put sanctions on Saudi Arabia for Saudi companies? Right. Oh, and then, of course, do you think China's going to give a rip? Right. You know, we're just going to go in and, you know, build. That's what they do all around the world. See, the U.S. position is not only a minority position, it's an untenable position because events are moving ahead of this arcane policy, which was introduced by Barack Hussein Obama, okay?
Yes, no, exactly. I mean, you have to really think in terms of Obama must surely be the worst president America has had. I don't know, since I don't know who. I mean, it's like, it is so catastrophic, his foreign policy. You know, when you talk about Syria, Lebanon, Syria, Libya, Yemen, and then Ukraine, that's his foreign policy. You know what he did domestically, the antagonism, the sort of he tore that country apart essentially. I mean, he was such a divisive president, and he's still doing it in his post-presidential career. You know, you have to say there needs to be a very serious reckoning with the legacy of this person. I mean, we talked about,
well, particularly since Trump is gone.
Right. Yeah.
You know. Trump can't be your foil anymore. Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's
right. But you know, no. The media they're just hooked at the hip with the Obama legacy because it's their legacy as well. No, all in. This is very, very interesting to watch here. The Saudis basically have their back up against the wall, failed war against Yemen. The maximum pressure on Iran has gone nowhere. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't understand this, is that, you know, when you put such strong sanction regimes on a country, what do? They have import substitution. They do stuff their own. I mean, you know, we said it here before, you know, we call it Iran, you know, today it's Persia. Persia is ancient, a very sophisticated culture, creates amazing intellectuals and scientists, you know. I mean, I remember when the Shah was overthrown, when those hundreds of thousands of Iranians left, and a lot of them came to California. They slipped right in, very cultured, spoke English, had money in their pocket, It was fine. Transition over. Okay. You're dealing with a very sophisticated people here. And the American people have no clue because of this whole embargo since the hostage crisis. It's never been, the truth hasn't been spoken about that country ever since.
Right. And that's right. And again, and it goes back to the people who were around Barack Obama, that it never occurred to them that neither Iran nor Russia would permit the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. They were not going to do it. Syria was a loyal, long-standing ally of Russia's. You know, that goes right back to the height of the Cold War in, I think, 1972, when the Soviet Union and Syria signed a friendship treaty. It's a big deal for them. And Iran, you know, Iran has not forgotten that Syria was a loyal ally during its long, horrific war against Iraq during the 1980s. So they were never going to allow this to happen. And for Obama to encourage this, and with a view to what? To have the black flag of ISIS, you know, in Damascus? What a stupid, insane policy. And we got stuck with that. I was still pressing with the sanctions. And now Iran is shipping oil to Syria, escorted by Russian warships. So now, you know, Israel cannot attack, you know, these Iranian oil tankers, because that means you're going to be attacking Russian warships, and Israel doesn't want to go there. So therefore, your sanctions policies itself, you know, terrible though it is, Iran is getting around it, and Russia is helping Iran to get around it.
Well, and also what is in the cards here is that Israel is on the losing side, because their longstanding policy for their neighborhood is to keep all of them, all their neighbors at each other's throats. Okay, that's their divide and conquer policy. It's their worst nightmare that the Saudis want to talk to the Iranians. I mean, that is their worst nightmare. All right. Because that has such a knock-on ripple effect. And of course, these Abraham Accords, you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not against them. I don't see their utility, except for saying what's obviously been true for years. Okay. But, you know, I mean, I've always been cautioned by many people not to talk about the Arab Street, and maybe with good reason. But, you know, with the events going on in East Jerusalem, you know, Bahrain, I mean, thanks a lot. You legitimize this regime doing this to Arabs, to Muslims. Okay. I mean, that's why you and I never made, you know, we talked about them basically in neutral things. It doesn't move the needle one way or another. It was something that Trump could, well, I guess Jared Kushner could brag about. But, you know, when it comes to these kind of events, it shows that it's, you know, ephemeral. It's not really worth the paper it's written on.
Oh, no. I mean, essentially what Trump and Kushner embraced was the idea that, you know, it's the old Zionist idea. You make life so unacceptable to the Palestinians that they'll just go away. You know, they'll just disappear. In other words, we just ram down Israel's advantage to their throat and say, hey, we're going to take everything. We're not going to give you anything. And look, you don't have any friends. No one's coming to your assistance. Look, you know, we've got all the powerful Arab states lined up behind us. You've got nowhere to go. So you better, you know, sign on the dotted line. Otherwise, if you wait, you're going to get an even worse deal will be on offer tomorrow. So that was the Trump policy. It's a ridiculous policy. I mean, the Palestinians, they've been around for a long time. You know, they've been fighting an awful long time.
Yeah, it was called Palestine for a long time, and the people that lived there, Palestinians. Yeah, I mean, the Trump approach, the Kushner approach was, and this was astounding, and you and I have talked about this, is that Palestinians? What Palestinians? Right. There are no Palestinians. Right. See, that was their approach.
That's the old Zionist cliche. Yeah, there is no such thing as the Palestinian people. You know, like Golda Meir used to say that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, so we have shifting sands going on. There's a reckoning in the region. Okay, I think there's a big winner in all this is Russia. At the end of the day, why? Because with the exception of terrorist groups, obviously, Russia can communicate with everyone. They can talk. They have open doors. And I just want to kind of knock back at our critics here. The Russians are talking to the Taliban. Yeah, they are. They are talking to the Taliban because the corrupt government of Kabul, its days are numbered. Pull out those vintage helicopters from Saigon, George. Gonna need them, okay? Because the reality on the ground, you have to reckon with the reality on the ground.
And I think that's the important point, is that relations between Russia and Saudi Arabia are very good, which has always been an interesting case, because, again, relations between Russia and Iran, very good. Historically, there have been, difficult relations. Remember Stalin, who created those two states within Iran after World War II. And then, of course, during the years of the Shah, terrible relations between Iran and the Soviet Union. Under Khomeini, terrible relations between Iran and the Soviet Union. Now, Russia and Iran.
The second Satan.
Sorry?
The second Satan.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Iran has very good, but Russia has good relations with Saudi Arabia because they both have a vested interest in trying to keep oil prices high. So they're actually tacit allies in the oil market. So they have good relations, and therefore, yeah, absolutely, not a good situation for Erdogan, because he's now increasingly isolated there. He's been abandoned by Saudi Arabia, which was at least a tacit ally of his in Syria. So he's clinging on to Idlib for what end? Just trying to make life difficult for Syria. But why? Because Syria is now already, is well in with the rest of the Arab world. So therefore, he's just keeping this going just for the sake of keeping it going. So he's now isolated, and with luck, we might be seeing some daylight in Syria, some final resolution of this war.
If we do see this come to fruition, we see this rapprochement, then Erdogan's position in Idlib is just simply untenable. Right. I mean, why? Yeah. The war's over.
Right.
It's over. Yeah. It's time to pack up and leave.
Right.
Now, I mean, at the very, very least, they'll keep a 20-kilometer buffer at the. I don't remember what year it was, but I mean, even the Assad government, the father, said, if you have these what you deem to be Kurdish terrorists, you need to swoop in and do something. Okay, that was always tacitly understood. So, I mean, we're moving in that direction there. The problem for Erdogan, as it always has been for him, is that you have this highest concentration of jihadists, violent jihadists. What do you do with them? Right. So that's his problem. Right. See, you aid and abet them, right, but then when you need them to go away, what do? They only have one place to go, north, Turkey.
Yeah, no.
And they're not going to be happy.
No, they're definitely not going to happen. Well, I guess he can just hold on to them and then do his usual thing of coercing the Europeans, going to the Germans. Hey, do you want all these people in your beautiful little country? No? Okay. How about whipping out your checkbook and coughing up some money? That's pretty much his only resort. But it does create problems for him in Turkey if these jihadis then start committing terrorist acts within Turkey. Not a good situation to be in. But yeah, I mean, the whole situation in Idlib is untenable, and it's going to be more and more difficult to get supplies and foodstuffs into Idlib. I mean, Russia and Syria have basically been cutting off all these entrances to Idlib for the very good reason, saying this is not tenable, it's not viable to hold on to Idlib.
Well, all the more so if we see Syria back in the Arab League. It's going to be the Arab League versus Turkey in the region. Okay, and the Arab League is going to say, one of the neighbors, Turkey, is illegally occupying one of our members in our organization. Okay, it starts having a pile-on effect here. We've talked so much about Erdogan. He's like a cat. He lands on his feet all the time, actually, in many ways, at least in foreign policy. But he's juggling a lot of balls here. He's looking to make trouble all through the post-Soviet space in the Caucasus,
Yes.
and we're going to keep an eye on that. But the point of this video is that there's a little bit of a crack of sunshine coming in, something positive, which we very rarely talk about.
No, that's right, and it's something that, again, showing the folly of U.S. and EU policy, which is they embraced regime change in Syria for no very good reason. You know, it's still a kind of a mystery of what on earth Obama thought he was doing. I mean, I guess it's a mystery what on earth he thought he was doing in Ukraine. But you know, American politics often don't think about what they do. But now he's now stuck with this, and he's on his own. You know, no fig leaf of any Arab support behind him. You know, other than, I guess, he can go on making speeches about values. It's all about values, and Bashar al-Assad is violating our values. But yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely untenable, foolish policy.
We're going to see where it goes.
Exactly. All right, Peter. We'll maintain our laser-like focus on the Middle East. And remember, we are now on locals. So please support us to whatever extent you can on locals. You'll find us on thegaggle.locals.com. And we're also on Rumble. Look us up on Rumble. And if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.